welcome to Jurassic Park for a minute. We're discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
And Dave.
And on this episode, it's all about minute 81 of Jurassic Park 3. But before we get to that, David, over at Jurassic-Pedia.com, another article here by Tyrannosaur TJ on a bit of behind the scenes on the United States Marine Corps and the US Navy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the US Navy and the US Marines are something that that have always kind of gone together. The Navy has always kind of transferred the Marines, and the Army and the US Air Force have always been kind of like the Air Force always transported the US Army. So those two kind of go together, and the other two kind of go together. So it kind of makes sense here that the Navy and the Marines would show up on Isla Sorna.
Yeah. And it's sort of looking back over film history, there's always Delta Force, SEALs, all those branches of the military. Sort of, there's some that have specific films about them, some that have more 80s action films about them, and here in the Jurassic franchise, it's really the only time apart from the end of the Lost World where we get outside military forces involved in the story. But yeah, a little background here on both sides and their involvement here at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a little bit of history here. Like you said, their involvement in the film, and just a little kind of footnote here at the bottom. It describes how the Navy is like really the main kind of constitutional power that is granted as to the armed forces. And it's interesting because, of course, now we have the Army, Marines, Navy, and the Air Force, the four main branches of the armed forces, and then there's the National Guard, which does domestic issues such as they'll be called in, say, dinosaurs get loose on the mainland. But yeah, so a big thing that was worrisome when the country was first formed was a lot of the kind of imperial powers like Spain and Britain and France would hire privateers and pirates to legally attack their enemies, basically. And they would get immunity from the country they're contracted from if they were to, say, attack, like, say, France was at war with Britain. They would attack and pillage British ships in the name of France. And so that was kind of something that the U.S. was kind of worried about, because piracy of the high seas is also one of the few kind of powers that the Constitution gives Congress the power to fight against. And so that was like something that was just a little fun fact that I guess we kind of threw in the article about how in the early days of the United States, our biggest fear was our ships and our Navy being attacked by privateers.
Yeah, and it's good just having a little bit of history, real history like that we can put in with the franchise as well.
Did you read Malcolm's book?
Yeah.
So?
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of preachy. And too much chaos. Everything's chaos. It seemed like the guy was kind of high on himself.
Well, that's two things that we have in common.
All right, Dave, ready to get into minute 81?
Yep.
As we entered minute 80 of Jurassic Park 3, everyone was loaded onto the helicopter and were reunited with a bandaged up belly. As we open on minute 81, we get a shot of the two Seahawks heading out over the ocean. At the 4-second mark, we cut inside as Grant tries to bash his hat back into shape. At the 11-second mark, we can hear one of the pilots yell out, "What the hell is that?" Paul turns to look out the window, and we can hear in the background Eric yelling, "Dr. Grant, look." At the 17-second mark, we cut outside the helicopters to see three pteranodons flying through the sky, past the choppers. As the large animals fly past choppers, Grant watches them depart. Eric asks, "Where do you think they're going?" Grant replies, "I don't know, maybe looking for a new nesting ground. It's a whole new world to them." At the 34-second mark, Amanda comments, like daring to nest in Enid, Oklahoma. Paul laughs at Amanda's comments, and while looking at her, says, "Let's go home." It smiles all around the helicopter as Eric laughs. Grant just smiles and puts his hat on as the Jurassic Park theme begins to play. And as we end on minute 81, we pull back outside the choppers as they both draw close to the rescue Navy ships. And this ends minute 81 of Jurassic Park 3. As we continue from into minute 81, the Seahawk flies out over the open ocean towards the ships, and we cut inside as Grant tends to his newly returned hat, and that's when he looks across to Eric watching him, and they both smile. I'll just go back to, we mentioned last minute about how this is more of an Indiana Jones moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to remember which film it was. I think it was when Crusade, whenever Indy's in the rain and the hat sort of just, the brim just completely goes down and covers the face and everything.
Oh yeah, that hat is like indestructible. I mean, they just do stuff with those hats in those movies. That is like, I mean, I beat up my hats. I mean, I have beater hats, but there's like no way I'd ever let my hat get soaked in the water like that.
Well, that's it. Even though he's only doing a little bit of touching up here on the peak and sort of on the brim as well, I'd imagine what it would have been like when it came out of the water, and then I'd imagine too when Billy was getting picked up, I don't think the medical staff and that on the chopper would be too concerned about the hat, so it'd probably be on the ground getting stood on or anything else. So it looks in pretty good condition here for something that spent a good part of the night in the water, and probably not cared for a lot afterwards as well. But from up the front of the helicopter, we can hear the pilot say, "What the hell is that?" And we can see out the window the three Pteranodons flying past the helicopter. Grant yells, "Dr. Grant, look!" And that's when we cut outside to see the three animals. Somewhat CG looking. They don't look too bad here, but fly past a departing helicopter, and we get that JP theme start to build again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I really do like the this ending here where we get the theme uplift and we get the shot of the Pteranodons flying through the clouds. I mean, let's face it, in all fairness, they would have just taken the railgun on the side of those choppers and just started blasting them off the island, out of the air. But
well,
I mean, that's not Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but actually, that's probably more Crichton with what we get in the original novel and that. But we'll return to that in a couple of minutes' time, because guns do get pointed at those animals in the script. But as they fly away, Eric asks Dr. Grant, "Where do you think they're going?" And Grant replies rather peacefully, "I don't know, maybe just looking for new nesting grounds," which and it's a whole new world to them, which I always was sort of annoyed that Grant's not more not caring, but more worried that these things are leaving the island. As all the terror they've just faced in the aviary and all that, there's no to the pilot, "Hey, we need to contain them," or anything. It's just, life finds a way. These killers are out loose to attack anything they want.
And I think the point of this movie is for Grant to kind of come to terms with his PTSD. And I mean, I know that's not like the main message of the movie. It's kind of more of an underlier. But even in the script, it goes as in the what was it? It's like the junior novelization, or the storybook. That was it. Even in the storybook, on the beach, the bullhorn guy gives Grant a phone, and it's Ellie on the other end of the line, and she's asked, like, "What the hell are you doing there?" And Grant says, "Evolving." So it's kind of him learning to come into the modern age and accept that these things are out there, and he can't change that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and we sort of get that later with the junior novelization as well. He started the film InGen Monsters, nothing more, nothing less, and now he's sort of he's gone back, he's experienced again, and he knows it's not really true. That's when we cut to a worried-looking Paul and Amanda, and she says, "I dare them to nest in Enid, Oklahoma," which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
About what?
About her saying I dare them to nest in their hometown.
I think she was being sarcastic.
Yeah, because they didn't really do anything to kill any, so it's not as if there's been growth there, and if they come near me, or near my family, I'll do them over again or anything. But we do get that smile from Paul as the little bit inspirational music there plays, and they look at each other, and that's when Paul says, "Let's go home." And Eric laughs. Grant just smiles and puts his hat on as that theme kicks in again. And as the minute ends, we cut back outside as the two helicopters continue to fly towards the waiting Navy ships off in the distance. David, that's the minute. Not a lot happening in these last couple of minutes, but anything else on that before we get into the novel and script comparisons?
No, I think we're good.
All right. In the novel, first up, because it's the closest to what we see in the film, Eric nestles himself in between his parents and looks out the window back towards the island. His mind was filled with unanswered questions. He had come here as a boy filled with dreams of adventure. What he had experienced had changed him. Could he exist in the outside world again, or would his dreams be filled with this island for the rest of his life? Which, dude, it's only been 8 weeks. Yes, you're going to have some nightmares in that maybe for the first few nights. Again, not knowing his full story of what happened to him on the island, but he survived it. I don't think there'd be too much PSD there or anything. There's a lot of stuff added to that in novelization just to fill the pages of self-monologue in that like we do here. But I think he'll be fine. That's when the pilot suddenly yells, "Hostile 9 o'clock." 2 military men in the cabin snap to action as the Trenodon dropped into view through the window. One of the men yells, "1 at 3 o'clock." Or 1 at 3, the Marine yelled, and raises his rifle to take careful aim. And that's when Grant yelled no, and he grips the barrel, pointing it away. They are just flying in formation. They think we're one of them. So that's, as you were saying before, the Marines in the helicopter in the novelization were going to take aim and shoot the Trenodons, but Grant stops them, which is I think pretty interesting there. Eric watches as the third animal joins them, and they all fly in a giant V. As horrifying as the creatures were moments ago, they are suddenly beautiful again. So again, they're not attacking or anything, so they're looking graceful, flying in the air alongside the helicopters. The lead animal peels off, but isn't heading back towards the island. Eric speaks to Alan without shifting his gaze. Trenodons of the Mesozoic could fly over oceans and go from one continent to another. Where do you think they'll go? And that's when we get the dialogue and response from the film. And the stuff with the Kirby's is exactly the same. So, into a little bit of extra stuff there with Eric mentioning that the original animals could fly over oceans.
Well, as we know by the viral site from the first Jurassic World movie, we know that they actually ended up going to Canada and nesting there, where they were just taken care of, I guess you could say, by Hoskins ACU.
Yeah, we're going to mention it next minute, but the Jurassic Park Adventures book series that comes out after the end of after Jurassic Park 3, the third book in the series, has them getting to the mainland now. I'd love to read that book and see how much they took from that article. I don't doubt there'd be a character in it called Hoskins, and it might even have some of the sales script notes in it as well, but hopefully I can get my hands on those books and give them a bit of a read before we get too far away from Jurassic Park 3. Alright, in the script, we're a little bit different here. As the second helicopter touches down to pick up the others, the first helicopter is losing the battle with the Trenodons even as it climbs higher. The chopper suddenly tips and falls from the sky. It smashes into the trees and a giant fireball erupts up into the sky. So as you were saying last minute, possible that it's lost its rotors here with the animals swarming it. There's no mention of the animals still being on the helicopter when it crashed, so I wonder, again, bringing up Masrani's crash, as soon as the animals disable the helicopter there, they pretty much all flee and let it just fall out of the sky because they're evil creatures.
I know. I mean, this ending is so much more explosive than their ending in the movie. I mean, in the movie they just kind of fly off into the sunset, and here, I mean, they're just basically kamikazing the helicopters.
Yeah. Even Novelization though too before with the raptors in the clearing, like we had the Pteranodons there too in an epic fight between the two predators and the people just getting away. So much extra stuff here that could have been in the film just to pad out runtime a little bit and have a little bit more action here at the end of the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing the explosion, the second chopper pilot takes off. Eric, Amanda, and Paul are on board, but Grant is still up the beach running. As the helicopter passes right over him, Amanda yells to the pilot, "You have to go back, we can't leave him." And seeing a ladder released by the door, Paul throws the lever, and a cord and steel ladder unfurls, dragging across the sand. And Grant chases after them, catching the rung just as it goes over the water. Behind them, the Pteranodons are circling the wreckage of the first chopper and starting to go after the second. I wonder if... I don't know if Sam Neill would have been able to do these stunts running after the cable, the ladder being dragged and that, and maybe would have had some obvious stunt double stuff here, especially hanging from the helicopter as it takes off.
Oh, it's actually, isn't that the opening to
Yeah, it is.
to Fallen Kingdom?
Which I rewatched last night for the first time in a year.